right? And it went through the entire path. And it found something interesting, right? What it found was the following: that there is a gentleman by the name Kyle Prasad George, and he goes by KP George, and he is the county judge of Fort Bend County. This means like he's the highest executive authority of the county itself, right? KP George. And I knew because I've seen this in the pipeline before that he got in trouble. Like years ago, like 2 years ago, he got in he got into legal trouble, right? But to be honest, because I'm so focused on the kidnapping side of things, the kidnapping of the child, right, and the void orders and all that, I haven't not as a human, I have not paid much attention to that. Like I know he has some case, he has a case, right, but I don't know. I wasn't aware exactly of what it was. Like I didn't pay much attention to it, right? But when I put the pipeline to run on exhaustive mode, it starts flagging KP George, and the score went to the roof. This happened because I ingested the transcript of demo 114 and the call that I made to FinCEN, which I recorded. I recorded the call and I ingested the transcript of the call, right? So all those entities got ingested into the pipeline, right? And when I run it into exhaustive mode, in exhaustive retrieval mode, KP George score went to the roof. Like he is right now the highest ranking, in my system, which is basically finding liability for them, like things that I can target, right? To give you the story short, this means that according to the pipeline, what I see yesterday is that KP George is the weakest link. Like he is the weakest link for me. Like he is the entity that I need to target, not Telfair, right? So I start debugging this and I start seeing why. Bingo, right? I see it. It's because the legal cases that he has are about money laundering, right? So financial crimes. He was charged with 2 counts of money laundering in 2024, I think it was, right? Or I don't know. He got arrested in 2024. There's a mugshot of him, right? That it's on the internet when he got arrested on 2024, I think it was. And then he got charged in 2025. I think that's the sequence. With 2 counts of money laundering and 2 counts of impersonating something. I can't recall exactly what it is, right? But he has 2 criminal cases, right? 2 charges, 2 counts. 1 criminal case with 2 counts for money laundering, and the other one is a misdemeanor. But you see, this is why, I couldn't have seen this as a human, but the pipeline saw it. He is the weakest link because the crimes that the network is committing now are financial crimes. That's why I reported them to FinCEN. They're committing wire fraud, a scheme to defraud me of property by freezing my bank accounts using electronic means that are interstate. This is federal wire fraud, right? And assisted by the tampering of the court records, as the clerk is doing. So the tampering of electronic records of the court, which are also transmitted via the internet, which makes it interstate. This is federal, right? No question. So the reason why this is a nuclear weapon for me is because, well, the alleged crimes for which KP George is charged today and is awaiting trial, he's indicted for these crimes, right? For these alleged crimes. These are financial crimes, right? The same type of crimes that Telfair and Troy Pickett and the other one that are covering them judicially, giving them impunity, are committing, right? It's the same category of crime. And this also shows, right, that this is what I'm saying, that these judges are committing financial crimes is not hypothetical. Like this is already, there's already charges against the boss of Telfair. This judge, county judge, KP George, is the highest executive authority in Fort Bend County. He is the boss of the courts, like not judicially, but like he manages. He's the executive responsible for those courts, right? It's his county. And he's charged with money laundering, right? And these judges are committing wire fraud. So you see, this connects the entire RICO enterprise together. So of course, these elevate the stakes because now I can make the argument that KP George is just the leader of the ring, and Telfair is, one of the co-conspirators in the financial crimes. So that's exactly what I did, right? So I immediately called FinCEN, right, and filed. I left a voicemail a report explaining the situation, right? And I'm explicitly saying that this is not hypothetical. Like, this is not me, like the leader of the ring is already charged with 2 counts of money laundering. And I recorded that, the voicemail I left in that voicemail of FinCEN, which I imagine, because this particular voicemail is for financial crimes related to terrorism, okay? Which is exactly what they're doing, because they're doing this for the Cartel de los Soles, which is an organization that is designated as a narco-terrorist organization by the U.S. government, right? And Telfair is doing this because I reported Diosdado Cabello to the IRS. So they're working for a narco-terrorist organization, and that gives jurisdiction to this particular team of FinCEN, okay? Now, I don't know if this is like this, but I imagine, right? If this is a FinCEN voicemail that its objective is to gather information about financial crimes, financing terrorism, which is exactly what this team of judges are doing. I imagine this voicemail must be monitored by the FBI or the DOJ or somebody. Like, I don't think they're gonna set up that voicemail for such a serious thing and just leave it there, right? Like, not unattended, right? So Diosdado Cabello can just block it. I imagine this has to be monitored, right, by automated means even. So I think, this is game over for them. But just that voicemail, right? But I also escalated. How I escalated? Well, there's also an email address that was set up in 2002 by FinCEN to report things. So this was after the September 11 attacks, to report exactly the same thing: financial crimes aiming to aid terrorism, right? Which is what they're doing. They're kidnapping children. This is terrorism, right? This fits squarely into the terrorist category, right? But this is a voicemail that is related to the Patriot Act. It was set up on the grounds of the Patriot Act. So I emailed to that mailbox a registered email, which is guaranteed to be delivered, that has all this information, even the recording of the voicemail that I left, okay, in the FinCEN voicemail. So in case that person that gets that voicemail decides to delete it, and if for some reason, the monitoring systems of, the FBI or whoever has that mailbox monitor fail, I also send this on an email with a recording to that voicemail, okay? And I also attach the documents, the hard proof of the tampering with the docket and the wire fraud, right? That these officers of the court are committing, including the Judge Telfair, right? Also, the Parker vehicle here, so I cannot communicate. Nice. Okay. I can't communicate in this way today. I'm going to tell them this so they, stop pushing, because there's too much. If you see the environment, the visibility is low. There's a lot of fog in the air. And this, because what I'm doing, this makes my system, weak in these conditions. So I probably can't even receive a message. So, don't try. Anyhow, so this is, yes. So I sent that email to that monitor inbox as well, right? One sec. Okay. Yes. So I sent it, right? And so, I doubled the probability of detection, right, with that. And in this, because the other one was a voicemail, like I couldn't attach any evidence. But in this one, because it's an email, I attached the actual documents, the hard documents proving the fraud. And also, in that email, I notified them that I had sent the legal notices to the banks. Let me tell you which the banks were. They were Chase, Goldman Sachs, uh, Bank of America, Vanguard, Fidelity, and Bank of China. Okay. And they have the copy of the document of the Supreme Court that has attached to it the hard evidence of docket tampering, which is 20 years in prison for the person that committed it. And I imagine that for the people that aid them in hiding it will also be prison time, right? And remember, the officers of these banks have the obligation to report this to FinCEN because of the allegations made in this document, right? Anyhow, so I sent that email, right? One second. Okay, one second. Okay, yes. So, but don't leave yet because it gets even better. So after I did this, so remember now I have sent two things to FinCEN and also to the banks who are obligated to report it to. So this creates a circle of transparency. You see, FinCEN knows, the banks know, and the banks are obligated to tell FinCEN. You know, in case they say that they didn't get my message, right, and my email. And then the other thing I did is I went to the OFAC, the Office for Asset Control, right, which is the one that watches these individuals that the U.S. government sanctions for things like money laundering or corruption or drug trafficking and things like that, and they freeze their assets internationally, right, wherever they find them. I mean, this is an office of the government that freezes yachts on the high seas, and I mean, they have amazing capabilities of freezing things, right? So, of course, this gives, and remember, Diosdado Cabello is an individual that is designated as a special designated individual in the OFAC list, meaning he is sanctioned, right? With a score, like if you go to the OFAC database and you search, the individuals have a score. I imagine this, I mean, me being a data scientist, I imagine this is kind of, a level of gravity, right? Well, Diosdado Cabello's score is 100. It says a score 100, right? So I imagine this is like 100% sanctioned, right? So, and these judges are working for Diosdado Cabello because they're doing this to protect, the Cartel de los Soles, which is the organization that he commands, right? So this means that they are all working to protect the assets of an individual who is sanctioned by the OFAC. Okay, so of course this gives me the opening to report all of them to the OFAC. So that's exactly what I did, and the OFAC has a portal, where you can self-report, like you can voluntarily give information to the OFAC, right? So I logged into this portal, which is, I imagine, a secure portal monitored by the highest federal enforcement authorities in the country, I imagine, right? Because, I mean, these are not small potatoes. These are not small criminals, right? Like, these are people that are really causing real harm, right, across the world. So I logged in to that portal and I reported Judge Telfair and all of these judges, and I uploaded the same document that is in the Supreme Court of Texas, right? And I also uploaded to that OFAC portal the dockets of the criminal cases of KP George. And this was the master stroke, I think. I don't know. I try not to give too much credit to my work, to the things I do, because but I see this and I think this was really a master stroke. Let me tell you why. Until now, right? What they I mean, the process. I mean, I don't want to comment on the judiciary process of KP George, right? Because he has a right to a fair trial, and I don't want to deprive him of that. But I have to tell you, the setup I'm seeing is concerning because the person, so what they did is that they named a special prosecutor on the case, right? Because if he's in Fort Bend County, he cannot be, the prosecutor cannot be an employee of him, right? Of Fort Bend County, because that would be, unfair, right? So they name a special prosecutor. Now, the special prosecutor is also flagged in the index of the Venezuelan intelligence database, the same database that I'm describing, right? The special prosecutor is marked, is there, right? So of course, what I did, I sent the special prosecutor all this evidence so he can use it on the trial. I FedEx it to him, right? He will get it today. So now, I mean, he has a duty because he's not acting as a private lawyer. He's acting as an officer of the court prosecuting KP George. When he gets this package, he has the duty to show this to the judge, right? Let's see if he does it, right? But the prosecutor is marking the index, right? So I mean, the prosecutor would be the equivalent. I don't want to be hyperbolic on this, right? But if you ask me, the setup I'm seeing is that the prosecutor is a smaller version of Robert Mueller, right? You remember when Robert Mueller was the special prosecutor investigating the Russian interference? I mean, Robert Mueller is working for the Russian intelligence since 20 years ago, right? And he was probably recruited because he was in California before, where the PayPal Mafia was born, right? So it's ironic that they not ironic, this is by design, right? When they get caught, the TTPs, they name the special prosecutor, right? It's a person that they control. And the job of that person is to look tough, but in reality, dismiss the case, right? Or make it fail, make it not really be prosecuted at all, right? So that's what they did. Super spies. Yeah. So anyhow, this is the same, right? So they name the prosecutor to prosecute KP George, but they control the prosecutor, right? I mean, again, I don't want to taint the access to justice of KP George, right? So yeah, scratch that. But the prosecutor is marking the index, right? I cannot say that because he hasn't acted yet. We have to wait to see if he obstructs justice, right? Or if he really puts him in jail. We have to see, right? But if he doesn't put him in jail and he's marking the index, right, and he has all the hard evidence I sent him, and he doesn't show it to the judge, I mean, 2 and 2 is 4, right? But anyhow, I sent the dockets of KP George and the evidence that I sent to the prosecutor to the OFAC, right? So now all of this data, all this hard evidence of fraud committed by Josh Telfair and Troy Pickett and William Kyle Adams and Terry Adams and all these people is in possession of the OFAC. And it's in this OFAC database that I imagine it must be one of the most heavy guarded databases in the world, I imagine, right? I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but I imagine it's probably one of the most heavy guarded, right, databases. So, I mean, this is undeletable, right? And now the prosecutor or whatever they had planned, right, to give KP George a slap in the wrist, is going to be under watch of I imagine, right? The OFAC is going to be, I don't know if they're going to change the judge before that would be pretty funny, right? Like if they change the judge the day before, right? Okay, you were thinking that you were doing this sham process, right? Now we're going to bring a judge from Washington, right? Or from, a place that is not heavy under control. That would be pretty funny, to be honest with you. But, and even if they don't do it, the prosecutor and the network in general, they have to fear that the OFAC is watching all this. So I imagine, right? They have to go ahead and put him in jail. And, if they put him in jail, I win because it shows that this is a RICO enterprise. I mean, the leader of the enterprise is in jail. Like, what can you expect about Telfair, right? I mean, if the boss of Telfair is in jail for money laundering, and I'm accusing Telfair of doing wire fraud, how can you doubt it? How can you harvest any doubts about what I'm saying, right? So that this is why the pipeline identified KP George as the weak link. Now I have to tell you, I think it's really, well, I don't know if this was done out of incompetence or out of overconfidence, right? But um, in Spanish we have a saying, and I don't know if in English there's something like this, or if I don't know, right, or if it will translate well, but it's something like um, sorry, one second. Let me check something here. Yes. So the saying is something like, people that have flammable pants shouldn't get close to the fire. Something like that. Like, we need to, if you know that you have something to hide, you should not, you know, poke that bear. That specifically, I mean, you could do something else, but not that bear, right? I'm saying this because if they know that KP George is already under indictment for financial crimes, how can they attempt? I mean, in what head does it fit to try to do wire fraud to silence a witness on a court that is overseen at least executively by KP George? Wire fraud being a financial crime, it just incompetence, right? They gave me this weapon. They gave it to me, right? And they should have foreseen that if they have this trial, the trial is coming up. The trial is in March 10, so it's in 14 days. 2 weeks from now is the trial for money laundering of KP George, and they're committing this wire fraud 14 days before this trial. It's hard for me to comprehend the level of incompetence of these people, right? Even as criminals. But anyhow, to give you the short story, I sent this to the OFAC, and now they will have the dilemma that do we go ahead and let KP George go free, risking all of us being caught if the OFAC has people watching, or do we put him in prison, right, and give the witness, the whistleblower, a nuclear weapon because now the leader of the ring is in prison for money laundering, right? Um, So I don't know. It seems to me like it's an unescapable situation for Telfair and Troy Pickett. But I mean, that's just my opinion, right?